In today's video, we'll be spicing up things a little bit with the 95% rye whiskey from Bulleit. Hello and welcome to another spirits review here at Bespoke Unit. My name is Reinhard and we'll be drinking together the Bulleit Rye Whiskey, a classic American straight rye whiskey featuring a particularly high rye content with 95% and just 5% of malted barley on top of that. The history of Bulleit dates back to the first half of the 19th century when supposedly a gentleman and tavern keeper called Augustus Bulleit would start distilling his very own whiskey. It was only many moons later that Tom Bulleit, a former attorney, started and revisited the original creation under the Bulleit name in the 1990s. Now, Tom wanted to revise the family history and start the brand from scratch. And actually, he was working together with Seagram's back in the days before it was acquired by the Diageo beverage conglomerate. And still to this day, Bulleit whiskey is part of Diageo. There's a well-composed portfolio under the Bulleit name consisting of the traditional Bulleit bourbon, which also has a high rye content, and that was always historically a feature of the whiskey going back to Mr. Augustus Bulleit. Then there is the 10-year-old and introduced in 2011, the Bulleit Rye that we will be sampling today. Now, Bulleit bourbon and rye have always been produced by other distilleries because there was no Bulleit distillery when the brand actually started to really pick up international business. And the Bulleit Rye in particular came from the large powerhouse MGP in Indiana. In 2014, I believe, Diageo started a visitor center in the old, historical and rather iconic Stitzel-Weller distillery. And then a couple of years later, for a minuscule budget of $115 million US, they started to build their own distillery in Shelbyville in Kentucky. Now, most of the juice will be coming from there, but I believe with a lot of the stock that is left, we're still drinking the juice that has been manufactured in other distilleries. So let's get right to the Bulleit Rye Whiskey. As I said, we can expect a blast of rye, a blast of spice, and these very distinct, characterful, darkly roasted aromatics, and I'm really looking forward to what the glass will hold for us. First, let's look at the color. It's a luscious, glistening gold with just a bit of an orange hue there. The viscosity is not overly thick. The legs run down the side of the glass in a rather fast fashion, but as you very well know, the guidelines and the rules for the production of a straight American whiskey are rather strict. So there's no additives to this whiskey at all. You can't add any sugar. The juice needs to be stored in fresh American white oak barrels for a particular time. In this case, we're looking at close to 5 to 7 years approximately. And thus, there's no tampering with either the color or the sugar content of these spirits. So let's get to the nose. Crisp, characterful, popcorn-like at the beginning. A lot of vanilla, a lot of that typical charred white oak that will immediately get to the nose and dominate the nasal expression at the very beginning. Then the rye character really shines through. A lot of bread-like characteristics, this dark roasted aromatics, almost like a pumpernickel bread. Roasted rye, dark, spicy, earthy, slightly leathery in the back. There's also a sprinkle of fresh citric nuances, like a pink grapefruit zest and a fresh lemon juice. White chocolate, also pepper, black pepper, and a little bit of a white pepper as well. Mineral, funky, overripe banana, and also some other tropical fruits like an overripe mango and papaya. And to round everything off, again, that luscious vanilla cream, thick, heavy cream, tonka bean, and a little bit of a charred caramel note. Next, let's take a sip and get to the tasting. The experience is very much aligned with the nasal expression. So again, at the beginning, there's this vanilla cream, heavy cream, charred, roasted bread and wood characteristics. The white oak shines yet again. And then only on the second stage and the second layer, we start to reveal the spiciness. The rye bread, the pumpernickel is there yet again. A little bit of an orange marmalade with the bitter pieces of the orange rind in there. This time I get a ginger spice, whereas the pepper is a little tamed down. And towards the very end, there is also a reddish fruit sensation that reminds me of berries, also black berries, and again, a little bit of the banana note that I already experienced in the nose. The finish is clean, it's crisp, it's not very long, I would say medium, and there is a certain depth and weight. The body is luscious and velvety, but it's not overly complex. It's straight, it's to the point, it delivers on what it promises to be, and that makes Bulleit a rather mixable whiskey for all your preferred classic cocktails. Typical like an old-fashioned, Manhattan, a rye-based Sazerac, of course, or even things like a whiskey sour, the classic rye and dry with a little bit of ginger ale, or other long drinks and highballs. How would you drink this wonderful whiskey? I'd say just as I described it, preferably in one of your favorite cocktails. You could certainly have it neat over a large block of ice as well. My particular favorite is a refreshing, zesty long drink with a crisp ginger ale and a piece of orange zest. The bottle itself, very neat, very minimalistic. This like embossed, like imprinted Bulleit Rye Frontier whiskey right here on the glass. It's not even a label, but it's surely part of the glass of the bottle itself here. And you will see the very same with the traditional Bulleit bourbon whiskey and the 10-year-old. Underneath, the label has that very fresh green label. I believe from a multisensory experience standpoint, the green suits the overall aromatic profile quite well, and it delivers some of that fresh bready spiciness in a distinct fashion. Other than that, there's not much to it. The label also, of course, indicates it's 45% alcohol by volume, 90 proof for all of you in the US. The bottle resembles a flask that people would traditionally carry in their pockets. Slick, neat, a very manly, sort of a compact experience when you have the bottle in hand, when you can pour it. It's also great when you want to handle it as a bartender, when you need to speed pour. So that has all been very well thought through. It's quite an affordable whiskey. It's in your everyday spirits rotation because that's really meant to be a sipping, mixing cocktail and long drink rye whiskey. And actually, when Tom Bulleit started to bring the vision of Bulleit Rye to the market, it was designed for the bartenders. So it's truly a product for the craftsmen and women behind the stick who pour these rye whiskies on a daily basis. As always, you can check out all our spirits guides on the Bespoke Unit website, as well as the best cocktails to mix with those particular spirits, in this case, the Bulleit Rye. I have also prepared for you a complete tasting sheet using our review matrix from Bespoke Unit. You can have a blank copy of that to do your own spirits reviews, or you will find the full write-up of my review sheet that I assembled for the Bulleit Rye. What about some pairing ideas? As always, the pumpernickel for me, since it's so distinct and characterful with the olfactory and taste sensation of this rye whiskey, it makes for a fantastic pairing. So you could certainly have a piece of pumpernickel, maybe a little smear of butter. You could also take that very same combination that is often served with oysters and have the pumpernickel bread with a little bit of butter and the oysters and some of the Bulleit Rye on top. Or you could even drizzle 1 or 2 drops right on the oyster before you indulge on it. Other than that, a crispy chocolate bar with some pieces of nuts in there would go fantastically well, and a rather characterful, dark, roasted, spicy cigar to sit proudly alongside this wonderful whiskey. I definitely pick a more characterful smoke like Romacraft's Neanderthal, for example, or a cigar that can stand up to the spice, the earthiness, and the charred, woody characteristics. This is certainly a great everyday rye whiskey, not overly expensive, not superbly complex, but to the point, straight, with some guts and enough character to it so it can stand up to all those other mixers and cocktail ingredients that you're gonna throw on top of it. And even when you enjoy it neat or over ice, this will not disappoint. So with that, I'll leave it to you, and I'll see you next time here for another spirits review at Bespoke Unit. Until then, you stay safe, you stay healthy, and pour yourselves a great cocktail with Bulleit Rye. Cheers.